a lot of people though who don't have a faith or don't have a sense of spiritualism in their life don't understand this concept. And it's something that I've learned a lot on my travels, is that people who think that they are in the driver's seat, the one calling the shots, have more anxiety in their lives.
For sure.
Because there's something so freeing about being like, okay, this hasn't worked out, but it's not God's plan. Like, and just accepting that in its purest form and being like, 100%. We're going to leave it there and something better is coming, but we've just got to be patient because it's
trust that it will pan out.
It, because the being still in that patience is so important, because it teaches you so many lessons. Like, so many lessons within yourself, your internal like fight, and so many lessons within like slowing down and appreciating life. Because I think that often like people are like going 100 miles an hour and they're not appreciating what they have or what's in front of them.
But also I think the beauty of what I found in that space was not just that the anxiety subsided, but it also felt like, I don't know, I was taking steps that I wouldn't otherwise have taken because now it felt like I was seeing. I was no longer just rushing ahead like, oh, I need to get here. It was like I was actually present in places and actually seeing the doors that were open or the opportunities that were sitting around. And there was something beautiful about it, but equally terrifying about it, because me being me, I'm the control freak that wants to do everything, that wants to play all the different instruments. But one thing I realized while going through that was my journey looked like listening to the voice that goes, if you want me to lead you, I will lead. But you have to listen. And for me, I have that struggle where, and I was realizing more about this in January, where it's like I think emotionally I lean more to the side where I've seen my work as my worth, and I've seen myself as someone who is working towards trying to earn status, trying to earn value in society, trying to earn my place as an individual, my place in family. And I suppose also being a sibling, there's a part of me that fell into the trap of I'm trying to also be worthy of being loved.
I was actually having a really interesting conversation about this similar topic with somebody who came from immigrant parents also, and like I think us coming from immigrant parents, we have this drive in us to like prove ourselves because they've had to prove themselves, and it's so like instilled in us that like we have to work so much harder because like it's gonna be so much harder for us.
Absolutely.
So like we're just like constantly trying to achieve like when people look at my career and they're like, how have you like succeeded so much so young? And it's just like, well, because I've like grafted
from so young.
Like that's it really. Like it's a simple equation, but it's a hard one. Like and it's just really interesting when like we just work so hard, and it's really important to not equate yourself to your work, because like everyone is valued the same at the end of the day.
And that's the thing, that in that process I was realizing that I had a huge struggle, even having been in a place where I had let go of that control. I still found it incredibly difficult to accept that it's possible for God to love me and want the best for me, and all of this with no strings attached, like with purely the decision being, look, if you want me to drive the car, I could drive the car, but just get your hands off the steering wheel. Whereas I'm the backseat driver that's like, no, let's take that route. And before I know it, February rolled around and I was back in the driver's seat.
Flat tire.
I was back in the driver's seat like, nah, I got this.
And down some dodgy road with loads of potholes.
Exactly. And again, the anxiety started settling in. I suppose the madness of the freelance world started settling in, because I think there's been something weird going on in the film and the creative industry where COVID, it feels like we're experiencing the fallout of COVID now.
Oh, really?
Which is really odd. And initially I thought it was just me, which was part of where the madness was going on. But
and then you jumped on Twitter.
We've got like a creative group chat, and a bunch of people started being like, is it just me, or is it really quiet? And I was like, okay, it's not just me. So that felt nice, but on top I was like, that doesn't help, because I still need to get working. And then all the anxieties, and before I knew it, I again was in this place where I was like, oh, I need to do this, it's all on me. And I think it was like a week ago that I was post finishing this piece. I've just been reminding myself that, one, I need to step back again. I need to step back and gain perspective again, because I've clearly lost that perspective. And part of that has also been that I still have that voice, but I hadn't been listening to it. And that voice has been responsible for every good thing I have. And so that's why this morning with the McDonald's thing, it felt huge, because I was like, this is just McDonald's, but this is the first time in a long time that I've listened to this voice. And I can remember driving and just feeling like, wow, I haven't felt at peace, even with the chaos of them messing up my order. So McDonald's, you all need to sort that out. But nah, it's so beautiful, but it's also exciting to be chatting with you, because I feel, and from our conversations, I know that you are someone who, I don't know if free spirit is the appropriate word, but you're someone who allows themselves to float above the structure. And I don't know if I'm communicating that well, but it's something that I, for a long time, have struggled with, because I'm like holding on to the barriers, although I'm floating, and I'm like, oh, I want to make sure that I'm still sitting between the lines. And I'm just fascinated by this trip of, it feels like you've gone into a completely different world over the last 4 months.
I think that it comes from a place of, like, I've never been somebody who's fit a norm. So I've always been a bit of a weirdo, I'd say.
Where is
and
it?
That is right by your finger, in front of you.
Oh yeah.
You're like, where is it? So like I've always been a bit of a nomad, a bit of a weirdo, but it also comes from a place of me knowing myself so well that, like, I know who I am and what I want from life, and
no, you're good.
Like, I know who I am and what I want from life, and I know, like, what life has to offer. Like, I was talking to a friend about this last night. Actually, we were at the full moon, and she was like, Elleni, I just love you, because you're one of these people that are just like, I'm gonna go and do something. Like there won't even be a second thought in your mind. You'll be like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna plan stuff. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do it. And I think it comes from this, like, hunger for life. Like, it's definitely something that I found with getting my faith, was that before I was like really, like, probably blasé is the best word about, like, life. I'd just be like, like, I sort of lived in this state of, like, victimizing myself a little bit, where I'd be like, woe is me, and like wallow in it a little bit. And, like, since finding my faith, I've been, like, so excited for life. Like, I'm just like, I'm gonna go. It was in September that I decided I was going to go travel Australia and Bali and Indonesia with no money in the bank. I was like, I had like 3-4 months to save up enough money to then go. So I grinded and I hustled so hard to get, like, that money to then hop on a extremely long plane, or many planes, to get there. And it was an amazing time, but it's you just gotta grab life, because nobody's gonna give you anything. You just have to make it yourself.
it's also, I suppose there is a part of your, because I can tell you are a lot more independent than I am. Like, first, and partially it might be the fact that you've lived alone and done your thing for like so long. Yeah. But it's both inspiring but exciting, but also like, how the heck do you do that? Because I can remember when you had mentioned about going over to Australia, and I was just like, this is what I mean by the whole floating above the structure, which is so exciting, especially as someone who was used to doing that, but very quickly fell into patterns created around me. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, this is real. It's not just in my head that it's possible to just follow life and chase it down. And again, that's something that this summer I'm excited for. I know that all the things that I've planned out have given me a lot of structures to sit in, which is good considering
I think at the end of the day, I mean, like the most important piece of advice I give to people when they want to go and travel and they want to go and do all these things, which takes a lot of independence, is you have to make sure you have the infrastructure within yourself. Like you need to make sure that you have a part of home within you, like you feel comfortable, confident with yourself, that you are able to up and leave and be happy and content wherever you are, because otherwise it becomes really overwhelming. And also like there's no like right way to travel. Like if you, like for instance, when I traveled Australia, I did the whole East Coast, but I was supposed to only be in Byron Bay for 3 days, and then I ended up staying for 3 weeks. So it was like you know, like if you really like somewhere, just stay there, explore it more, like just fall into it, you know, like let yourself be 100% involved in it. Don't have one foot out the door until you're ready to open that door again. Yeah, it's tricky. I guess there's also the fear of it not working out. And to be fair, that fear also reminds me of the fear that comes along with pieces like these, because the words around are meant to represent the words in my head prior to working on the piece. Most of these are the words and the circumstances that led to me going, oh, this is not a good idea. You're a weirdo. Why do you think this is gonna work? Just why? Stop. Like you're stepping. To inner saboteur.
Exactly. The inner critic was loud, to say the least. And I guess usually there's this quote that for a long time has been something that I've tried to live by, or to remind myself of constantly. It's the thing you most want is usually found in the place you're least willing to look. And it's like finally just carving away at all the thoughts and all the fears. It's like, well, we're gonna make this happen regardless. And that's something that I hope to learn from your journey. Because it certainly isn't easy. I feel like you have a particular grace for jumping out.
Life isn't easy, but you have to find the beauty within each day. And there is so much beauty in the mundane itself. Like you don't need to be in like tropical paradises and gorgeous beaches to see the beauty. Like there's so much beauty everywhere. Like particularly within people, I have the most amount of faith in humankind, and I think that people give humans a lot of shit because they're like, oh, they're awful people, but there are some amazing people.
Absolutely.
And it's truly, I'm a true believer that when you are that light for a lot of people, you attract the right people. And you just have to let them fall into your life. Like when I go traveling, like I've come back with so many friends and I've made so many connections with people, and I think solo traveling is amazing because it forces you into social situations that if you went with a friend you wouldn't be in.
Exactly. You'd go for the safer route. Nah, for sure. I'm excited by, more recently I've definitely fallen back into my introverted world. but I definitely agree with that beauty in the mundane, but also finding life through other people, because ultimately we are relational beings. And in this period where I'm a lot more introverted, I'm trying to remind myself of that the best part of life is in reflecting through other people. I can remember I was working on a speech one time, like for a funeral, and I can remember stumbling across the word Ubuntu, which is it's a South African word. I can't remember what language it's from, but it's one of the languages in South Africa, and it basically means I am because you are. And the idea that we reflect ourselves to each other, that I can't tell who I am without experiencing me through you. And it's this weird idea that, like, without other
because
people we don't get,
internalize ourselves way too much.
100%.
And then, like, it only takes you like
stepping out of that.
Stepping out of it, and like you folding into other people's lives for them to appreciate you, for them to you reappreciate yourself. And it's like we're constantly learning from other people, and I think that's one of my favorite things about my career also is that I'm in a constant state of learning, and like it doesn't matter whether you're like at the top of your career or not. Like I could learn from a pot wash, I could learn from a greengrocer, I could learn from anyone within my industry or even not in my industry. Like me with my socials and like learning to edit videos and voiceovers and all of this stuff that I didn't think that was part of my career, but apparently it is now. But it's like it's just this constant state of learning, and how other people, we're all molded by the people who are in our lives. And I think that's something you really come to learn, especially in your like 20s and 30s, is like the people who you decide to keep as company. You need to make sure that they're people who are reflecting the best parts of yourself.
100%. I was literally waiting to say that, but you've covered it. And it's weird. I think I'm in one of those spaces where I'm blessed to have a lot of these things popping up, but it still definitely feels more like that valley space where it's like, this is where the work is done to get me back to a space where I feel like the 100% me, as well as walking fully in the strength both of God, but also the wisdom and the knowledge that I've picked up on the way. But I think community, and the right community, is so important, because in recent times, I know for a fact that I've been like, oh, I need people around. So I hang around a certain group of people and I'll go, oh no, this is not the one. Like there's like a specific type of people. And like you said, eventually you gravitate towards,
and often,
or they gravitate towards you.
After you've had a few trial and errors, you can then really sense the energy, and you can sense when your cup feels topped up or not, because it's quite often we have this cup which, and I am like such somebody will just like give out to whoever. I'm a feeder, so like I've got
you exhaust all you have.
I exhaust myself,
refilling.
But if you're recharged by the people around you, then it comes in tenfolds.
100%.
And I'm a true believer that like wealth is not how much sits in your bank account. Wealth is the relationships we make with other people, the memories that we share, the experiences we have, and that really what wealth is about. And I think that's where our generation has a conflict with the older generations, because they're like, you need to be successful with your career and blah blah blah, and you're just like, no, I'm hopping on a plane, bye.
and it's also tricky because I guess we are both fortunate in our respective fields, and we've worked for it, no doubt about that, to be in a space where it makes it, we have space to build that wealth. And I think that's something that scares me sometimes, but if anything, it's more gratitude that exists in it. Is a lot of the experiences that I was frustrated by, and I was like, why do I have to be doing this? Why do I have to be doing this at the age of 12? Why do I have to be stepping into these spaces? All of a sudden I'm like so grateful that I was in those spaces, because I'm like, damn, like to to imagine going through that now, where it
Yeah.
feels like life, the weight of life is starting to set in,
Yeah.
it's kind of terrifying. And I guess that it makes sense from the perspective of parents nowadays.
Yeah.
When I think about it, where I'm like, I get it. It needs to be sustainable. I need to make money, but ultimately, I have been on that side of it where I'm like, oh, I'm making a really good amount of money, but I feel burnt out and I don't feel like I want to do anything, and I feel like just staying away from everyone else. Whereas
it's hard
it's just
to
finding
find
that
balance. It's so it's honestly so hard, and I think that especially being a chef, because like the chefing industry is crazy, and it's like, you know, like at the beginning of my career, I'd work 16-hour shifts every day, and I would graft so hard, and I think it came to a point you just burn out. And like, it's why the industry has such a high turnover, is because it's like, it's unsustainable to be in a restaurant for longer than like a year because 6 months with a team is like 5 years. So it's like, okay, there's like, come on, there's only so much you can learn and do within that time. And I think that like that's something I really learned in my career, was that I had to find a more sustainable way of approaching life, because me working that hard and working that many hours, I wasn't going to last very long. So it was about me having a more nurturing approach to my career and being a bit softer with it, to be honest, because I felt like I was like going 100 miles an hour, and I was like working as hard as I could because I wanted to be at the top of my game as young as I could. And then now I'm at this stage where I'm like reassessing. Hey, it's okay. Okay, I'm at the stage where I'm like reassessing my career, and I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to have a career that is balanced enough that I don't feel like I'm working all the time, but I kind of am. You know, because it's about like, from a creative point of view, there's no way you're ever shutting off. Like it will be like 2 o'clock in the morning and you'll be half asleep and you'll have an amazing thought and you'll have to write it down somewhere, or like,
or get up and just try something.
Or like, and it's like, you kind of work 24/7 when you're creative, because you can't afford to say no to that thought. Like the amount of times where I've been half asleep and I've come up with this like flavour like that I want to try, so I'll be like going to the supermarket that's open 24 hours to like go and find ingredients to like cook a dish up until like 3 o'clock in the morning. Or like, I remember when I was a young chef and I was like, I really needed to know how to rocher. So it's like when you create like a perfect like, it's like that sort of shape with a like a mousse or a butter or something like that. And I remember I stayed up until like 5 o'clock in the morning rochering everything I possibly could in the house, like to get it perfect, like to get it absolutely perfect. And it's, you just like, as a creative, you live for your creation. Like, and in Greek we have a word, and it's my favorite Greek word, and it's meraki, and it means to part your soul into something that you love. And I feel like it resembles like how I make food, or like how an artist will create a piece of art, or like, because it's not just a plate of food or a piece of art, it's an extension of who you are. It's an extension of your mind, in a sense, which is like, and a lot of the time it's easier to understand that when you visually see art, but when it comes down to food, and quite often people are just shoving it in, like it fully is like a creation of yourself, which you're then putting out there. Like the amount of times that I'll create a dish, and like if I'm in like and it's a lot of the time I play on colours, so like if I'm in a happy mood, I'll like pick a really vibrant dish and it will really like pop with colour, but then if I'm like in a really like meh mood, like it'll be like shades of beige or whatever, like, but like it's a further expression of my mind. And I know to a lot of people it kind of sounds a bit wanky, like it's just food, shut up. But I don't think food is just food. Like at the end of the day, we eat with our eyes, And I've always sort of had that mentality that food is art, because there's such beauty in nature. And I'm a chef who Mother Nature's done the hard bit. She's, you know, grown these incredible vegetables and fruit that look insane. I just want to do them to the best that I can do them, and that's it.
Yeah. And it's fascinating what you're saying about cooking, because even personally, it wasn't till probably 2021 that I first understood food as an art. Because everything you were explaining about the staying up till 5 a.m., the waking up with an idea of random taste or something, it's fascinating to me, because usually that's my process with like filming or making music. Is like I dream a song and I go, oh my god, I can't lose this song. I need to get up and do something about it. But it wasn't until 2021 that I could remember. I was like, well, before I get here, through that process of doing this with film or art or illustration or graphic design, I usually saw food as just a means to an end. I need to shut my body up because my body is crying, like it needs food, it needs sustenance, and Lord knows I don't treat my body the way I should. So I'm like, okay.
McDonald's and sweets is not a diet you should be living on.
Allow it. Convenience. Yes. But so I usually used food as a silencing technique. So I could get back and I could focus without my body interrupting me. And it was in 2021 that I can remember taking a step to try and, again, make my work and the way I work more sustainable. And I was trying to start running to improve my fitness, so I'm more effective when I get on a job, but also help with sleeping patterns, because Lord knows I am. Because
otherwise your mind just spins I'm
nocturnal. And on top of it, part of that was I realized that what I was eating wasn't enough to sustain this new life I was trying to build. And so I was like, okay, let's try and figure out how to make this work. And look, I didn't do it justice, but I tried. And but I can remember the first meal I cooked. I can remember going, holy shit. Like just the thought of someone going, oh, I had a little bit of this and then a little bit of that. And it's almost like I had never seen cooking from that light, because for a long time it was just like, let's just chow something down, whereas for the first time it was like, I've put love into this dish. And I can remember eating it and just going, whoa.
Well, food is so, like, when you cook, like, food is medicine, like, it fully is, like, if you eat well in a day, like, if you eat the right nutrients, your body will feel amazing, like 100%. It's definitely something that I realised becoming more plant-based or fully plant-based is the fact that I don't get lethargic anymore, or I have way more energy, because like just stripping like dairy and meat from your diet just does that to you. And I think that a lot of the time also, like, food, when you cook, it's a state of mindfulness. Like, it fully is, like, when you're, especially somebody who doesn't do it for a living, when you're cooking, you're really just having to think about what you're cooking, and it's a really great way to unwind. Like, I encourage everyone who has, like, who finds it hard to switch off, if you cook a meal from scratch, I know that sounds like daunting to everyone when they've finished a long day of work, whatever, but it will make you feel so much more relaxed than sitting on the sofa for 2 hours. Does. Leave the washing up till tomorrow, but like just tune in, because I think that everyone can cook, everyone's got the initiative to cook. You just have to go with your intuition, because it's instilled in our genetics of how to cook something. It's just people have become so detached from nature and so detached from where foods come from that we don't really have this understanding of what to do with it.
It's a massive disconnect, and I can relate heavily with that feeling of like, I really should cook, but I'm tired, I've spent the whole day on my feet, I don't want to I don't even want to think of what I need to cook. But especially a few months ago we shot the Michelin Minutes series, and
Michelin in minutes, it's a bit of a mouthful.
It is, and it was for me, it was fascinating because, again, for someone who isn't really in the world of cooking or doesn't cook often enough, it was really cool to see how almost, and I know this is years and years of working, how seamless and, again, connected with those ingredients and things you are, where it was like, it didn't look like you were processing. It just seemed like, like in the Disney movie where exactly, where the birds are throwing the flour in. It was just like, oh, and there's another dish.
I'm like cooking 4 things at once, and you're like, what's going on? I'm like, you want to catch the shot.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about like, for me, I'm so good at compartmentalizing food and how to cook something, whereas like I am so methodical with my thoughts, and it's come through years of training, is that I know if I'm to like cook 6 dishes at once, I know exactly what I need to do in what order, so that they're all ready at the same time. It's
almost like automatic as opposed to having to like
because
think
it all comes
each step.
it all comes from years of
repetition
exactly, and years of trial and error as well. Like you learn so much more from the mistakes than you do from the successes in life. And I think I think that when you have those like lows, you really come to understand the highs.
And at the moment, I think I'm in one of the spaces where I'm reminding myself that this is where the grit is. This is where the dense, intense level of growth is. And it's relieving because, again, in my head, I'm like, I've been here before. This is not, this feeling, this space is not unfamiliar to me. The only thing that changes is like the context. And I know a lot of people talk about the whole circle of life. Everything is a circle. Like, if it's happened, it's going to happen again. But for me, I visualize it almost like a spiral where it's like, I've been at this point before, but it's on a completely different level. So the turmoil I tend to feel is the feeling of like, I've seen this, but not in this context. Like, for instance, getting into a relationship, what was trippy for me was I was experiencing the same things that I've come to terms with, but all of a sudden they seemed foreign to me. And for a while, I didn't understand what that was, especially it being like first relationship. I was like, I don't know what this is. It took a while and reading and watching podcasts to realize that, oh, it's just the fact that there being a factor that I have not experienced before, being involved in the process completely changes how I respond to it. So I think I've been just trying to give myself grace and pace myself in it. And I actually did a podcast episode on what you were saying earlier about enjoying and finding the joy in the mundane, because that's something that, again, looking back to last summer, was so vital as far as to how much I enjoyed life. And I will say the weather being a lot more bright and sunny helped, but there was just something about, I don't know, driving down the road and seeing things. Like, I can see the colors, I could see people, whereas I drift between that seeing things and, oh no, I'm just going to this place and you're just in my way, and it's just a blur.
It's all about the journey. It's all about the journey in life. Like, if you're thinking about the end goal, there's no way that you're ever going to be content, because
100%.
If you're not along for the ride, then you're missing out of the journey. Like, you're missing out of the fun of life. Because like the amount of times, like when I did like a road trip all around like Southern Europe in a van, and like the journey of like the driving, I got so much. There were so many good moments from the going in between places, the in between moments that you stumble across, that you go down certain roads that you weren't supposed to turn down, or you know, you meet some locals that you weren't planning on meeting, and it's those moments that define your uniqueness. For sure. Because it's like we're all products of our experiences, and those experiences are the special ones, I think. And
a few years ago, I referred to it in my mind as like the end product, the finish line is just a certificate to say that you went through the journey process. And I think the golden nuggets and the joys are definitely found in that journey. I'm so excited for what you're going to step into next.
I mean,
because it's fun to watch. That's for sure. You make it entertaining.
Next I'm actually going to go and work on a sailboat. So I'm going to be a chef on a sailboat and tour around the Mediterranean.
I feel like you're gonna complete like Earth the map in like the next freaking 5 years.
Honestly,
if
that is I would love to, but the world is so big, and like there's just so much I want to see, and I have learned so much from the people that I have met along my journey, and I hope that I've been just as much of a lesson for them, or have made an impression in their lives as they have for me. And I think that when you start, like I started traveling 4 years ago, right? Like that was the first time I did like a big stint away from the UK. And people talk about this travel bug because it honestly is like you go away and you're like you get addicted to the travel life because you learn so much and you're in this state of like excitement and like also
pure adventure
and
lack of control.
Well, it's like I still have my routine, so I still when I travel I have to have my daily routine, which makes up part of my day, because without that I'm not grounded. So it's really important for me. I take like 2 hours every morning where I like wake up, I do like meditative prayer, yoga, journaling, and like sitting with myself every single morning.
I need to put that into practice for sure.
Because it just sets you off in the right headspace. And without that, I don't feel right. Like something feels off throughout the day. And when you practice that every day and you start your day with gratification for the things you have, even if you're just living out of a backpack and sleeping in a hammock, like you being grateful for the banana that you've got on you and the full water bottle, and you're like, okay,
that was very specific.
I didn't even know. But like it's just that state of like you being grateful for the oxygen you're breathing, the legs that are working, the fact that you're not ill, you've got full eyesight, and then the world is your oyster. In life, genuinely, I'm a true believer that you are your only limitation.
Faux show.
Like people often say, oh, I don't have enough. Like money comes into play a lot with these sort of things, and they're like, oh, I don't have enough money. I can't travel, or I can't do what I want because I don't have enough money. Like if you set yourself that target, if you like, I booked flights to Australia with money I didn't have. Like I was like, okay, I'm going because this is non-refundable. And like you setting yourself that target is going to make you work harder.
It's like just diving into it.
And it's about you putting that investment within yourself that is like the most important thing. I definitely agree with that. I feel like I do that in the slightly more unhealthy sense, or approach where I'm like, I know, again, like I was saying at the start, I'm incredibly obsessive when it comes to the projects I work on. I'm like, if I'm working on this art piece, I am stepping completely away from my life for whatever the duration is, and I'm sinking into it. And I can remember even with painting, I told myself that I wanted to start painting this year. Like for a long time I've been terrified of the canvas, and so if I know some friends who find it easy to go, okay, I'll set myself bite-sized chunks, I'll do a little bit here, a little bit there. I can't do that. So I was like, I need an opportunity to just be like, okay,
there's no backing out, which is similar to what you were saying, where even applying for that commission, I was like, I don't know. I haven't worked on a canvas before. I haven't done these things, but I guess there's also an element of trusting your ability to make it happen. I guess that's what balances out the way I do things, because in other instances, it just ends up being someone running manically into space going, I don't know what I'm doing, but I guess I'll try and make it up as I go.
And a lot of my younger career was that, like, when you start off as a young professional, especially a creative, I'm a true believer in faking it till you make it. Watch all the videos you can, educate yourself as much as you can, but don't say you can never do something. Just say, how do you want it done? Like, there's such a difference in that. And like, just taking initiative of your career and your ability, and just saying to yourself, there's nothing I can't do. Because as soon as you set yourself that mental block where you say you can't do something, it's game over. Like,
it's an uphill battle.
It's just like you've created that wall for you to climb over before you got to the hill. It's crazy. Like, I've got a younger cousin who's 9, and I was talking to her about, she was saying to me the other day, I was like, I was showing her how to like untie a knot, and she was like, I can't do it. And I literally turned to her and I was like, never say you can't do something. Just take a breath, and it's going to take you longer than 5 seconds. Like that's it. Like, you've just got to give yourself the extra time. I think that people get really impatient when things don't happen immediately, even especially like these days. Like, we live in this world now where things are 20-second videos and like things, we're not living this like slow
next day delivery.
Like next day delivery, fast food, let's go now. And it's just like we're not slowing down and appreciating what is around us and like the journey, like we said, because there's so much to learn within that. You know?
I'm definitely guilty of falling into that again, but I think something that some people might relate with as well is the fact that oftentimes as humans we are like pendulums swinging. So some and it's amazing just how beautifully frustrating our ability to forget is. That we can learn lessons, and sometimes if we don't manage or we don't do what we need to keep it at the forefront of our minds, we can easily just slip into old habits. And for me, I'm definitely guilty of that, where I'm in a space where I feel like I've swung back into territory that I felt like I should have learned from. But it's also giving yourself the grace in that space that like, this is where I am, and I got it. But and with what you were saying about people telling themselves that they can't do stuff, I think I'm getting better at this, but asking questions is also so important, because half of the time it's like, it's not that you can't do it, you just don't have the information that you need to do it. So it's like, oh, I don't know how to do it. It's probably a better statement in that space to let you know that, oh, there is something I need to find. And this is something that's also helped in my journey, is like, I tend to view things like a game. It takes the pressure off of it, where I'm like, okay, where do I want to be at the end of the year? I want to be at this place, and this place, and this place. What are the almost like, let's look at Mario. Like, which
level would you want to be on?
Exactly.
Rainbow Road.
And it's like, oh, do I need to get this achievement to get me there faster? And it usually, once we like simplify it for ourselves, because the world is so complicated that sometimes we're trying to digest, and it doesn't help that we have tools in our lives like phones that are overstimulating us with so much information. But sometimes it just takes like simplifying it down to basics and being like, well, I don't know any of this, so I'm just gonna deal with this and maybe ask questions. And I guess I'm also very fortunate to have people around me that I'm able to like tap into and go, like, I feel out of my depth, but you've been here. I
think people can get overwhelmed so much with the amount of like information that is out there. you know, like I remember when I was younger and like living in London, in North London, and like during the riots of Extinction Rebellion, and me like camping on the streets for like days and just feeling so overwhelmed with the state of the environment, and that like nobody was listening, and like it just became too much, and it got to a point where I just had to clock myself and almost put myself in a bubble where I was like, okay, there's only so much I can do. Like, I'm just going to try and use my knowledge as a chef to try and educate people how to make more sustainable choices. And that's me doing my part.
100%.
Because I can't do everything. And it's when you try to do everything that you then end up doing less. Because it's like you're so overwhelmed and you're not being gentle to yourself enough, because like you are one person. And it's like although we have power in the many, and like all of that is great, but at the end of the day, you're the only one who has to live your life. So you have to make your life as harmonic as possible. Because otherwise it's just going to be chaos.
And that is also the only thing you can control realistically. And I had the same issue on the side of like conversations around the whole Black Lives Matter time period, because for a long time I think it was like, I want to be a voice in this space, and I want to educate people, and and I then found myself in an avenue where I was trying to live and walk with a crowd, and it's like now I'm just shouting, whereas I very quickly found out that the post online, sometimes it's helpful, but the quantifiable difference I know I can make is one, living by the words I speak.
100%. And we live by example.
Exactly. And then two, making sure that any opportunity I get as far as creating, and in this, I've taken this across into kind of like all the things I believe in, is any opportunity I get to express, any opportunity I get to sit with someone and I hear something being said that I go, no, that feels like it's taking you down a wrong hole. I have a duty to say something, because again, and I know people would see the idea of putting yourself in a bubble as a bad thing. I suppose there's a negative way that could manifest itself, but ultimately what you're doing is saying, this is the spheres of influence I have. This is where I know, almost like a quantifiable, analytical way of going about it. This is where I know that I can make a in-person difference. And so I'm going to work on that and hope that, again, these drops will create ripples.
Ripples, because like at the end of the day, I think this is something that I really learned on this travel, is the fact that I will protect my peace at all costs. And I have come to understand that yes, I will put myself in situations that are conflicting with my peace, but as long as I am being conscious of that and I'm not getting overly invested, because at the end of the day, if you're getting pent up and over frustrated about like me getting overworked about Shell and whatever, then there's nothing I can do about it. Like
there has to spiral.
Exactly. There has to be a point where I say, okay, today I've done my part. I've tried to live by example. I've tried to educate people in some way. I've also just appreciated the mundane, and the beauty within that is that you're then having such contentment within your life, and there comes a state of peace with that, which a lot of people strive for in other things, but honestly you don't need anything else in your life to find that sense of peace. You need to work internally with what you've got, because like so many people will be like, oh, I'm like searching for my peace, I'm like gonna start like meditating and doing yoga and all of these things to get these peace. But it honestly, the thing where it really started from with me was the fact that I would find the beauty in the mundane. I'd go out for a walk and I would watch the birds within the trees. I'd watch the way the rain falls on the water and how it ripples, and like the way the sun bursts through the cloud, and just like the such simple things where people like, I just noticed people like rushing, like walking, and like not even like looking up at all of these things that are around them, when it's being present in those moments that you find your inner peace.
Yeah. It's more encouragement to do that. Ever since getting a car, I've been one of those people. Especially now that I'm just like zoom, just get out and get to where I need to go.
I think it's something I really learned during COVID, because like when we all, I mean, I was blessed because I honestly wasn't here that much for COVID, but the period of time that I was in this country for,
was that while you were in, like, traveling through?
I was, when I was in the van.
Oh, fire.
But yeah, so the time that I was here, and they were only letting us go out for certain periods of the day, like an hour walk. It was in that hour walk that I really started to be present within the nature.
Soak it all out.
And I started to like set myself a target for my walk. So on my target, I'd be like, okay, in this target, I'm going to take a picture of everything that's red. Or in this target, I'm going to try and take a picture of every like leaf that I really like, or I'm going to record a sound that I really like, so I don't walk with music, because I'm often somebody that will walk with music, but sometimes when you're in amongst nature, just listening to the nature is so important.
100%. Yeah, no, I could agree with that, because I'm the same, and I've also had a history of using music to drown out my own internal thoughts, and so like any opportunity, I didn't have silence, and again, somewhere here I've got silence.
Then that just adds to insomnia.
Exactly,
at night, and you're like,
it's just like
sleep.
again the overstimulation, and I also did that with audiobooks when I started listening to them again. I was like, okay, we're doing the double or nothing thing, where it's like, okay, we're doubling down every second of the day I'm listening to it, and is realizing that oftentimes it's not just listening to something. There's importance of digesting what you're hearing, and that's the beauty of the nature thing, I guess, because we're almost like internally tuned to that. That's probably the easiest frequencies that we can take in, and
it's the same. Like I also have that mentality when it comes down to like eating. Like so many people will like sit in front of the TV and eat, or like walk and eat, or like they're not like physically digesting the food. And it's like I have really added to my practice the state of appreciating the journey that food has had to my plate, and being present within that food, and you feel so much more satiated and fulfilled within that moment when you are really being present within the food. You're being grateful for the way it was prepared, or the fact that you take time to do this for yourself. Like I'm often somebody that's like, no way am I going to cook for myself. Like I'll cook, like if you ask me, I want a full roast and a 3-course meal, I will cook that. Like, but I wouldn't cook myself like toast. Like I would only eat like things that are coming straight out the fridge. But like I have learned over the last couple of years, and I think it's from a place of me being single actually, is that I am now giving this love to myself. That I am now doing these acts of self-love that I would have given to somebody else to myself, which is so beautiful, because then I'm like enjoying food a lot more, and I'm like nurturing myself properly, and it's a lot more fulfilling.
I definitely need to practice that. I feel like I've left this conversation with more things that I'm like, okay, this is a prompt to...
This is Guru Elleni.
What's the time, by the way?
It's almost 5.
Oh my gosh! At some point, I'm probably gonna need to grab my car. But
we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah,
I'm gonna drive back to London tonight.
Oh. Yeah, casual, floating over the structures as usual. Yeah, and thank you for joining the Honest Artist Conversation. Thank you for.
I love the title, by the way. I love the title.
It's another example of where I wanted to force myself into doing something that was difficult, because I struggle with being. Well, not that I struggle, but with art, especially like you were saying, it's so personal. And for me, I'm like, well, this feels most real. I feel most real when I'm being completely mano and being honest about what I'm going through. And
no
I was like,
scripts,
you know what?
just
Exactly,
words.
just send
Yeah.
it.
Just
And
words
sometimes I sit here with a mic and I go, I feel like I'm corny. I feel like I'm saying something, and I feel like I'm trying to play the character of someone doing a podcast. And I think, again, through that journey is allowing yourself do those things and then just growing from it and learning and just, so the honest side
I can't tell you the amount of food that I've created that I've just been like, this is shit. Like no way am I putting this anywhere. This flavor is not going. Like, I'm not happy with this. But it's like you go back to the drawing board and you learn from that in terms of like
what not to do,
or like also like I've had so many happy mistakes.
Yeah,
you know, like
Lord knows.
like with my photography as well. Like,
by the way, your work is freaking stunning.
Thank you so much.
I'm jealous.
But yeah, like the like when I get like strobes of light or like accidentally like overlaying photos or like a misfocus or whatever, and then you wait 2 weeks for the film to come through and you're like praying, you're like, oh man, I wish that I like captured this at the right time. But sometimes you get the best shots that were just not supposed to be, and they turn out to be your favorite on the reel. Like,
Lord knows that's the story of every one of my favorite moments in my art journey. It's like, again, for instance, the flags are the ones I'm most proud of, and they were the happy mistakes as well. It was like lines that went wrong, and I was like, you know what, let's just follow it. It's just leaning to it. Oh, that's so beautiful. But yeah, you do need to get to London, so we're not gonna. We'll have to have an episode number 2 at some point.
Yeah, I'd be so down with that. I'd be so down. This was fun.
I'll pull up to London.